Easy. There's the long connection. We are good to go. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to day 3 here at the Festival of Startups. I'm Alex Chisnell. I'm going to be hosting this session today. We've got Jill Stewart-Nicholson, one of the business advisors from Transmit Startups, who's joining us from Gateshead in the UK, further up north. How are you doing, Jill?
Really good. Wishing I was further down south though, because it is getting dark and rainy.
Hey, we've got exactly the same here in Poole in Dorset. And James joining us from Tunbridge Wells. I bet you've got the same.
Yes, I mean, it's not much to look at outside anyway, which is why we're all here, right? So
exactly, that's why we're all indoors, we're all online. Yeah, 100%. So we're talking about funding. Going to hand over to James to talk a little bit more about what's going on. But we've got a whole bunch of exciting stuff happening tomorrow as well, which leads on really nicely from Jill's session. So I hope you can all join us for this particular session. Little bits of housekeeping just to tell you about. You've got a couple of buttons there that you can interact with us. Hopefully you've already used the interactive networking, connecting tables out there and met some fellow entrepreneurs. As I say, if you've got any comments, any questions, any connections, you want to post up your LinkedIn profile, feel free to use the chat box, which you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen. And you've also got a questions tab if you'd like to ask a question that will go directly to me and I can position that to Jill. But do feel free to use the live chat function there instead. And it's just like a free-form style there where we can all interact with each other. So I'm going to hand over to James, one of our directors here at the Festival of Enterprise, to say a few words. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Alex. And good afternoon to everyone. I hope everyone is making the best of this beautiful weather by being here, obviously. A few bits to say. Yesterday, another really insightful, enjoyable day. You know, another big thanks to Josh over at NatWest, who I thought kind of outlined some kind of initial ways of thinking about your business. Our good friends over at Enterprise Nation, and of course the legendary Brendan Kane. I mean, what a man! So he's, you know, hopefully everyone's picked up some good stuff from there. Today's session, I think, is probably one of the most important sessions. No pressure, Jill. There's been a record amount of people starting up a business in the last 6-7 months. A record amount of people applying for startup loans. For a lot of people, you know, startup loans are the way to get your business off the ground. So a really important session today. I know it's important because I've had several of my own friends who are stuck on Zoom calls in their corporate world, you know, giving me particular questions to ask to Jill. So I'll have some very specific and also some quite broad questions to ask. This will follow on tomorrow. So really sort of today and tomorrow is around about sort of getting your funds in place so that you get your business off the ground. There are very few businesses which don't require any capital, however much you bootstrap it yourself. And I think, you know, certainly my input is I think, you know, the startup loans plan is brilliant. You know, we know loads of businesses that have gone through this and they've gone on to become massive businesses. In fact, a few of our event partners, you know, they told me their story, how they started with a startup loan. So yeah, it's great. And then tomorrow's going to look at the sort of level beyond that. We're going to be joined by Stefan Galiv, who is probably best known as being the investment director over at Dragon's Den. So you can imagine there's some pretty tough people to you know, to work on their investment portfolio. But he's going to talk about, you know, sort of tips about getting investment. We're then going to follow that with a bit of a look in venture capital funding, which is possibly one of the most misunderstood areas of funding. A lot of preconceptions around what investors are looking for. So we're hoping that's going to really demystify that, and you're going to know whether your business is the type of business that venture capital is likely to fund. And then we're going to finish the day tomorrow with a legendary Piers Linney, a massive friend of the event, most popular speaker of all time. And he's going to talk a bit about what he looks to invest in business and, you know, everything you need to kind of build your business. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Jill. I'm going to ask my questions throughout. I did notice something on here yesterday. There's some little icons at the bottom. There's a smiley face look. So if you like what people are talking about, give it the thumbs up. You know, right. Anyway, back to Alex. Thank you very much indeed. I hope everyone enjoys the session.
I'm just firing some emojis off myself then. There you go. See, you've got us all going. Yes, look, thank you very much indeed, James, for that introduction. Much appreciated, and we're all really looking forward to hearing from Jill. I used to be a startup loans business advisor for Virgin Startup myself, mentor, and also delivery partner. So I should have a little bit of knowledge in this subject to steer the conversation for those of you who've got questions as well, although every year they do tweak and improve things with startup loans. So Jill will be able to bring us fully up to speed with where they're at now and what it means to you as an entrepreneur, what stage of your business journey you're in that enables you to be able to apply for this fantastic scheme. Jill, I'm sure, will be able to give us some of the stats. But I remember even going back 18 months ago when I was helping with this scheme, that the stats were unbelievable. The amount of businesses that have been helped in the UK, and some of those businesses. I'll give you an example myself. Change Please. So I work with Jamal Easel, who's gone on to launch a brand which essentially helps people, the homeless, become baristas and have their own coffee business. His coffee is now being sold as far and wide as Virgin Trains, Virgin Planes. He's opened up in America as well. And all this is off the back of getting a £25,000 startup loan in the last 4 or 5 years. So it's amazing what you can achieve when the right resources are there. And I will hand over now to Jill, who can give us fully up-to-date agenda on what is happening in the startup loan landscape. Over to you, Jill.
Hi, thanks for that. Just to start off, can everybody see my screen okay? Is that shared okay, Alex?
Yeah, it looks really good.
Perfect. Okay, so today, just wanted to talk to you a bit about the startup loans as an alternative source of business finance. So I work as a business advisor with Transmit Startups, and we are one of the delivery partners for this scheme. So what we're going to be covering today is really what a startup loan is, who can get a one, and how do you apply for one. We're also going to look at some hints and tips to what makes up a good application, and some of the case studies as well around some successful businesses, so that you can see the different varieties of people that we work with. So the Startup Loans is a subsidiary of the British Business Bank, and it provides low interest loans, free business support and mentoring, and it's aimed at new businesses who can't gain access to finance through the mainstream methods. So a lot of banks these days might not be able to offer that finance to new businesses who don't have the trading history. So Transmit have partnered up with Startup Loans as one of the delivery partners to help deliver that through to people. Transmit, we're actually one of the largest delivery, well, we are the largest delivery partner of the Startup Loans. We receive around about 1,500 applications every month. Since COVID and the pandemic, that has actually increased. It has been unprecedented, the amount of applications that we've been getting coming in, which is just a sign of the times, people wanting to start up their business. Throughout the first lockdown, we had a lot of applications from people who perhaps have been thinking about starting up their own business and have felt that now's the time, they've had that time if they've been furloughed, to really start planning that through and getting in touch with us. So having a look at what a startup loan is. So there's many characteristics of the startup loan. Basically, you can access finance from between £500 and £25,000, and that's per founder of the business. So if you've got multiple business partners, 4 of you can apply for your own startup loans, meaning that the maximum investment that we can make into one business is £100,000. So we really can support different businesses of varying sizes. So some people might only need quite a small startup investment, but others, if you're looking to start a restaurant, for example, you might need a bit more than the 25,000. So if you're in there with a business partner, you can each get your own loan. The loans are unsecured personal loans, which is something to bear in mind. It's not a business loan, it is linked to you personally. We don't secure it on any homes or anything like that. We don't take guarantors, but we do credit check based on your personal situation, not the business as a whole. And that's what allows us to invest in businesses that are not yet trading. The loans themselves are over 1 to 5 years in term. I always recommend that you take it over the 5 years, basically because there's no early repayment fees. So if you actually think, you know what, I want this loan over a couple of years, take it over the 5, and that's going to reduce down those overheads in them first few months. And then after those 2 years' time, if you think, right, yeah, I can pay this off, you can do that, and the interest is only charged up until that point. What you can also do is make overpayments, so you can reduce that term down that way. So your monthly repayment might stay the same, but if you want to pay a few bits extra here and there, you're reducing that term down as well, which is just, it's going to be useful for the business stability. Everybody gets 6% interest rate. So that's the great thing about this scheme. It's not based, the percentage that you get is not based on your credit rate, and everybody gets the same. So you can really sit and calculate what those loan repayments might be. You can budget that in. So, you know, if you need a certain amount of money, you know how much that's going to be costing you each month. And we can also look at things like capital repayment holidays. So if you needed a higher sum, but you need the revenue in your business before you can start making those full repayments, you can do that by only repaying the interest and then adding the capital onto the leftover. The average size of loan is around £7,000, so you can borrow up to 25,000. But what we do look at is the rationale behind that. So what we don't want to do is overlend money to somebody. So we really look at what that loan's going to be used for, what is the rationale and the justification behind it, because the last thing that we want to do as a responsible lender is to overburden you with debt that you just don't need. It is for businesses who's been trading from pre-start stage up to 2 years. So you can, if you're in that growth element, perhaps you've been trading for about a year or so and you just need that capital investment to perhaps take it that step further, that's fine. Or if you're just at the concept, the idea stages of your business, that's fine. We're here to help you as well if you're not perhaps right at that stage of, yeah, I know everything that I need to know, let's go. We as business advisors can help you kind of with those last loose ends to make sure that you're in a strong position once you have the finance, that you're then ready to launch the business. Businesses have to be based in the UK, and that goes for residency as well. So you need to be based in the UK and your business needs to be based in the UK. And that's basically because it is government backed. So we want to see that revenue coming back into this country to help our economy. So now moving on to who can apply for a startup loan. So there's a few factors here just listed, which I'll run through. And the last one I'll go into a little bit more depth with. So the first point, you need to be 18 years or over. As we've said, you need to be based in the UK. Your business needs to be based in the UK. And you also need to have the right to work in the UK. If you are here on a visa, absolutely fine. But the loan term, there might be a few restrictions on that. So the loan would need to be repaid 6 months before the visa expiration date. So that's the only thing that you might have to think about additionally, just for the loan repayments, to make sure that that term is going to be affordable. You've got to be starting up a new business or have been trading less than 2 years. So anything over 2 years, unfortunately, the scheme wouldn't be able to support you. But that is at time of application. So if you are bordering on that 2-year mark, if your application comes into us before that 2-year anniversary, that's absolutely fine. We can be working on your application. So it might be after the 2 years before you get your funds, but as long as that application is in before the anniversary, we're good to go. The scheme is designed for people who've not been able to secure finance from other sources, be that from a mainstream lender or anywhere else. The self-declaration is absolutely fine for that. We don't need a screenshot of a declined loan application or anything like that. But what we might ask for is an email to just confirm that you have tried and you've failed to get that. That would also be if a loan that you've been offered is particularly expensive. So I believe if it's 15% interest or higher, it could be a bit unaffordable to you. Personally, I've had cheaper credit cards than 15%, but that would also be enough to get onto this scheme, and a self-declaration for that is fine as well. We do run credit checks with it being debt finance, and as I mentioned earlier, this is personal debt finance, so we would credit check you as an individual. It is done at the beginning of the process, so you would know if you've passed that stage straight away. And what we look at is your credit history as opposed to score, which does differentiate us a bit from mainstream lenders as well. So we do look at it as a whole as opposed to just looking at the score. It is done centrally by the Startup Loans company. So working with us as a delivery partner, we wouldn't actually be able to see your credit search, your credit profile. We would just get the outcome of what that is. Lastly, your business type and loan purpose has to be eligible under the terms of our scheme. So you can find out more information around that on our website. But just as a few examples, business types that we're unable to support might be businesses which are illegal or weapon-based, as you would imagine. Also, perhaps you wouldn't have thought businesses based around being an introducer, or if you're working as an agent of a third party, we wouldn't be able to support that structure. This doesn't include franchise models. Franchises are absolutely fine to fund through a startup loan. But what we need to make sure of and be wary of is just to make sure that as a business, you have all of the risks attached to that. So you're building up your own custom portfolio, you're managing payments from customers so that you're not, the payments aren't getting paid to a third party and then you're just commission based. That's when we might struggle. Loan purposes that we're unable to support. We wouldn't be able to repay off any other debt, and we wouldn't be able to reimburse anything that's already been paid for. So that is something to bear in mind, that if you've put your own investment into it, for example, buying your own technology or office furniture or anything like that you need, we wouldn't be able to use the loan to reimburse you for that investment made, but we would be able to use it for the additional items that you need to get set up. Mandatory training as well is an area that we wouldn't be able to look at. So if you have, for example, if you wanted to be a driving instructor, we wouldn't be able to fund the driving instructor course to make you qualified to do that. So the startup loan scheme really is to get you up and running in a business where you already have that experience, perhaps, or you're entering into a franchise that offers full training around that. There are other things, both in business type and loan purpose, that we wouldn't be able to look at. But as I say, there is a fuller list on our website. But if you're in doubt, if you've got any questions or inquiries around that, obviously just get in touch with us and we'll be able to answer that straight away. There are a few variations as to how your loan can look. So whereas when you go through mainstream finance for a loan, you would just get that loan. But what we've recognised as part of the startup loan scheme is that sometimes those costs, they might be spread out over a number of months. They're not always right there and up front. So we've got various ways that you can customise your own loan and really bespoke that and tailor it to your business needs. One way is by setting up a tranche loan. So it could be that you need £20,000, but you only actually need 10 now and you need 10 later. So all we would do is assess you on that full 20. So you go through that one application process. We would look through affordability, everything like that based on the full 20,000. But then we might give you 10 straight away, and then after 3 to 4 months' time, you need that other 10. You can then get in touch with us, and we can look to get that through. So it is it's pre-approved in principle, the full amount. Obviously, if within that 3 to 4 months' time something changes or you fall into financial distress, then it wouldn't. It's not a guarantee. But as long as everything's kind of going to plan, then that's fine. We also have second loans which are available. So if you've had one loan from us to get your business set up, within that 2-year age gap within the business, as long as it's not been paid in over 2 years, you can come back to us for a second loan to help grow your business and get that up to the next step. Now, when you're looking at a second loan, the maximum that you can have with both loans combined would be 25,000. So again, if you've got multiple founders, each person can do that. But the loans that you have can never go above the 25,000. But what is taken into account is the repayments that you've already made from your first loan. So whatever that is, we would then be able to build that up back up to the 25,000 or whatever value it is that you need. And it is a maximum of 3 loans per business. So if you tranched your first loan, you wouldn't be able to tranche your second loan. But if you didn't tranche your first loan, you can tranche your second loan. So you can have 3 maximum, and we would really split that out just to the best benefit for the business. So it is by case basis. We don't really have a set structure of what we do with that. We look at you as an individual, your business, what it needs, and get everything set up the best really that for you. The application process itself is it's quite straightforward. There's a few documents that we need you to complete as part of the assessment stages, but we have tried to keep it as straightforward as possible, really, for a smooth run. So there's 4 steps to the application process. Step 1 is to complete the registration form on the Transmit website, and then that'll redirect you over to the Startup Loans website centrally, which is where the application is held. So all of the applications are done online, and it is within the platform that's managed by the Startup Loans scheme. So it will be branded as that, but you'll start from our site, be redirected over there, and it'll ask you some questions, your name, your address, date of birth, and it'll also ask you for a personal banking details. Make sure that you don't put your business bank details in there, because we wouldn't be able to pay a startup loan into that. If you've got a personal account that you use for business, that's fine, but we wouldn't be able to pay it into a business account or a savings account. So when you're inputting those details, bear that in mind, and that is the account there we will start the credit search. So all of your information at that stage needs to be correct, because the credit search outcome will depend on that. So make sure that your address is correct, you've put your name in full and spelled correctly. You'd be surprised how many Chris's we get instead of Christopher, and it can just cause a few little issues. So at the end of stage 1, you will go through the credit check. That is a hard credit check, so it will leave a footprint on your credit profile, which is another thing to bear in mind. We don't yet have anything where you can check your eligibility without going through the full check. Those who might be sat there thinking, oh, I don't have a brilliant credit history or something like that, you can always get in touch with us to voice your concerns around that. There is a cut-off in terms of who we can and can't support, but we do work with a lot of people who otherwise have been unable to get support from anywhere else based on their credit history. It's just that we might ask for additional evidence from you, that's all. Make sure that your plan is completely airtight, a little bit more strenuously than we would perhaps somebody with a less risky credit profile. If you pass that stage, you'll be then taken on to step 2. So you'll know instantaneously whether or not that credit check's gone through fine. And step 2 asks you for your business information. So this is where you'd be uploading documents such as your business plan, cash flow forecast, and personal survival budget, as well as any ID documents that might be required. So options for that is proof of address, proof of ID. Sometimes bank statements would be requested, and that's all at this step 2 process. So some of those documents are mandatory, such as your ID and bank statements. Others aren't. So if you don't have a cash flow forecast that's done and you don't really know how to do one, that's absolutely fine. There's a selection there where you can put on there that you're not ready to upload it, and it'll still let you proceed. If you've put everything on there and it's not letting you submit your application at the bottom, it'll be because there's something that's mandatory that just hasn't been included in there. If you have any problems, so again, just get in touch with us and we'll be able to have a look to see what's missing, and give you a bit of a hand. Once you submit it, you go on to step 3, which is working with somebody like me, business advisor. What we do is basically look through the documents that you've uploaded, make sure that it's got all of the information in there we need and that everything makes sense. We'll look at your sales projections, we'll look at your affordability and your business plan as a whole to make sure that you've not missed out any details there. Make sure all, the sense checks makes, it's there, the business is viable. We'll get in touch with you with any questions that we've got, also to introduce ourselves because we like to be polite, and we can really have a chat around your business and just make sure that we fully understand what it is that you're doing, what it is, where you want the business to go, how big you want the business, because we can always, keep that relationship going if you've got growth plans and help you out later down the line as well. And if there is any changes need making, we can talk you through that. Perhaps if you've gone wrong or misunderstood a document, we can help clear that up for you and tell you what it is that we need. Once everything is correct and we think that it's a strong application, you're in a good role to go, Then we would send it over to our assessment team, and what they do is just a final pair of eyes over it, make sure that we've not missed anything as business advisors. So you know what it's like when you look at something a bit closely. You can't see the wood for the trees and things like that. Quite often I expect our assessment team to be psychic. I just keep information that I've been told and I forget to put it on my assessment. So there's that final sense check, make sure that it's all viable, it's sustainable as well. So, making sure that business has that long-term structure to it. It's not just a short-term thing. And then all being well, you'll be approved. You'll get your loan agreements through email now to sign straight away, so you can check through that, make sure you're happy. Your loan schedule will be on there, get it sent back to us, and then you'll be able to, you'll get the funds in your account within the next few days. At that point, you become eligible for our mentoring scheme. So the business support and mentoring as part of this scheme becomes accessible once you've drawn down your loan. And that's accessed for the next 12 months. So for the first year of your business, you've got our support. You're not just there on your own. We don't just give you the money and go, right, thanks, next. We like to keep in touch, make sure that you're all right. At the moment, there's a pilot scheme on as well, which is run by Virgin Startups. So with your permission, we would transfer your details over to them, and if you wanted to be part of the pilot, and they're just offering a few different things to see how best the mentoring scheme would work. So the traditional mentoring that we offer is one-to-one with a mentor that you can have for that 12-month period. The pilot looks at things like weekly webinars, helplines for the first 6 months, and then the last 6 months is when you would have that one-to-one support with the mentor. So the webinars, they're designed so that you can have a full overview, almost like business training really, with different topics each week, and you can interact with the business advisors on the helpline and ask any questions. So it is quite a good pilot to be in touch, to be involved with. But we do like to make sure that you're all right. So looking into what makes up a good application, I'm quite often asked a few hints and a few tips, what would you look for as a good application? And these are the three things that really spring to mind when I think about the applicants that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. The first and foremost point is to know what you need. So don't just think, right, I can get 25 grand, I'm going to apply for 25 grand. And that'll be great. Think about why you need £25,000. What value do you really need? Have a list it down. What is it? Break down your startup in terms of what do I need to buy? What overheads am I going to have? What working capital would be a reasonable amount to have at the end to keep that cash flow structure strong? And list that down and see what the value is. Because quite often you can think that you need one value and actually you don't. You need a bit less. And worse, on the other side, if you've applied for 10,000 but actually you need 15, it's always worth knowing that in the upfront, because then you've got a £10,000 debt that you can't start your business with. Sometimes we'll ask for quotes as well, so it is good to research those costs. Don't just estimate what you think a piece of machinery might be. Have a look to see how much it is brand new, how much it is second hand. Are there any finance options available if you just wanted to lease that piece of machinery, whatever's going to be more cost effective over the longer term? So do your research and really know what it is that you need and how much that's going to cost. Second point is be as detailed as you can. So you know your business really well, you know your idea because you're in your head and it's your idea, but then relaying that to somebody new who's never had those conversations with you, they've not been part of that process, just to make sure that the information that you relay to us makes sense and that it's full and it's detailed. So we know the operation side of your business. How many people do you need? What is it that you're going to be selling? Where are you going to get that from? How much is that going to cost? How are you going to sell it? How much is that going to cost to sell it? Do you need premises? All of these things, make sure that you've always got that down in your business plan. We've got a template for a business plan, which is basically like we've set it out like a question and answer, so that if you've never had to do anything like this before, it's not too overwhelming. We basically ask you what we want to know, and as long as you're putting down there as much information as you can think of, we can then pick out what's relevant really, as opposed to then needing to get back in touch with you and ask you further questions, which can delay the process a little bit, because with the amount of applications that we're getting in at the moment, it could be, right, if I'm looking at your application now, but then I need a bit more information and then I move on to somebody else's, it could be another couple of days before I'm back around, you know. So in terms of wanting to keep things as quick and as smooth for you as possible as our customer, just offering up that information first and foremost is quite helpful for us to be able to keep that moving for you. And if you're not sure, ask. Even before you've been assigned a business advisor, you can get in touch with us. We've got a chat service on our website. The telephone number, with us not being office-based at the moment, is out of action, but you can email us and someone will always get back to you. Alternatively, you can grab my details, find me on LinkedIn, drop me a message. I'd much rather that you did that and ask the question than sit there and ponder and be unsure about anything. There are things we can look at as well if you're perhaps not quite ready. So if you're sitting down to the business plan template and you're just thinking, oh, do you know what? I don't really know who my customers might be. I don't really know who my competition is. I'm not too sure at all how to do a cash flow forecast or what it means and all of that. We have structured a program called 6 to Start, and it covers 6 different topics of setting up a business. So you can subscribe to those and really learn your way through. You can either do it on a 6-weekly course, so once a week we'll email you the next topic. Alternatively, you can get them all at once and just really, if there's one area, for example, you're not sure about, have a look at it and pick and choose what it is you need to get that information. That's just on our website, which you can see at the bottom there, transmitstartups.co.uk/u, and you can sign up there just with your email address and we will email it all over to you to just really help you out, because what we don't want is to be offering loans out to people who then feel a little overwhelmed, a little bit rabbit in the headlights and not too sure where to go from there. The mentoring scheme is great to kind of guide you and build your confidence, but you need to have that foundation and the core structure in your mind first before really getting yourself into debt for the business. So always make sure that you know exactly what it is that you're getting into. This is my favourite bit, the success story. So I've picked 3 on this one based on our Christmas gift guide. This is the first year that we've done it. And our marketing team had the brilliant idea of really celebrating all of the businesses that we've supported. So not just this year, but from the start of us working with the Startup Loan Scheme. So we've got in touch with a lot of people, and a lot of people wanted to be part of this gift guide, and it really is just celebrating small business in a time when it is so important to really think about where it is that you're buying from, and to make sure that, with such a hard year that we've had, that you're having that little thoughtful gift to people at Christmas perhaps, which is nice. So the 3 that I've picked, I haven't tried them all, but I have tried the vegan chocolate, which is Freedom Chocolate. It's an artisan vegan chocolate brand. I'm not vegan myself, but I was too curious because it was set up on the basis that this family who set it up has a lot of dietary requirements. So they started to make their own chocolate because they couldn't find anything that they liked, and they discovered that they were pretty good at it. So started up this brand. We helped them buy all of the machinery so that they could get themselves going in a professional operation, and they were up for an award as part of Veganuary this year, which was brilliant. And it is really nice. It's a bit different flavors and things like that, which you don't expect. Illicit Spirits, which I will need to try, is on my Christmas list for Santa. It's a really good urban craft distillery based in Glasgow, and they've positioned themselves in a repurposed railway arch. And what they do is reinterpret classic ideas. So they make contemporary versions of traditional gin, which it's quite popular now, different flavours of gin. But this is all small batches and it's all made by hand. So there is real love and passion gone into there, and they try to take all of those traditional ideas, looking into the past of how things were done and putting that modern twist on them, which is good. And lastly, Be Well Manor. This is a luxury scented candle brand, which was born out of something that I can completely relate to. Yeah, I have not tried the product, but somebody that I work with has. So they don't like, it was born from not liking overpowering scents for candles. When you light up a candle and it's in your living room and then it's just don't know about you, but when it's too much, it starts stinging my eyes and I start crying. And my husband will be sitting there going, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, it's the candle, it's too much. So Be Well was born, and they've worked the formula's subtle scents from 100% natural ingredients that is said to rival the biggest brands. And that was a feedback from one of my colleagues who's bought it on the back of this Christmas gift guide. She bought it as a gift for somebody and she's kept it herself. So she's going to have to go out and buy another one now. But she said that it was absolutely lovely. So this is just 3 examples of businesses that we help. Obviously, these are all gift related, but we can help so many different varieties of sectors. So, data analysis, we've helped different kinds of franchises, restaurants, pubs. There's so many different types. If you're looking into R&D and things like that, Translone will be perfect if you're at the proof of concept stage, perhaps, and you're getting a prototype of something developed. And then you need another extra bit once that's developed to go to market, is an example of how Translone can be used and has been used in the past. So it's always worth getting in touch with us, seeing how we can help, because we can help a whole host of different businesses. So that's it from me. If you do have any questions, let me know. I don't know if you've been putting them through as I've been going on. I hope I haven't gone on too quickly. I tend to do that. I just go off on a tangent sometimes. If you did want to apply, the URL is there, transmitstartups.co.uk/apply. And you can just find that on our website as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Jill. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. I'll stop sharing my screen. Did that work?
Yes, it did indeed. So I am cool. So we've got a bunch of questions for you, and it's interesting from my point of view as well, just to hear what's changed. And I didn't know that because I do remember the Virgin Startup Mentoring. I didn't know that. I said we. I don't work for them anymore, but that was a pilot scheme only run by Virgin Startup. I thought everybody's running that, so that was interesting. So your model at the moment is like the traditional one-to-one mentoring. And just to kind of reiterate for people as well, because I was a Virgin Startup mentor as well, that once you have your loan application and you draw down on that money, you then initiate the mentoring process and you get matched up with a mentor depending on the different information that you would give, i.e. what sector you might be looking for, what market you're looking for, what experience you're looking for, those kind of questions. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, we do try and match people up as much as we can sector specifically. Sometimes there is more generalist mentors that we've got who, can just help with the full whack, because sometimes applicants do just want, they'll come to me and just go, I just need help. And they don't really know what they need help on. The Virgin Startups mentoring pilot that we're doing, our applicants can access that. It is a limited number each month that we can send over for that. Obviously, we just need to get people's confirmation that we're allowed to transfer their details over to Virgin. If they then wanted to come back to us for a second loan, they would come back to Transmit for that.
Okay, that makes sense. And keep your questions coming. I've got a bunch of questions to ask you. And just remembering again, it's interesting, like hearing what you were saying, because I could totally understand a lot of the different idiosyncrasies of the scheme, and that the loan panel then coming back with their questions as well. And I was just, oh, damn, I knew that I should have included that, and I completely forgotten it again. And
half of the time I don't even have to ask the applicant anything else, because I know the answer. I've just assumed that they'll know it.
yeah, me too, 100%. And do you get, so I remember, some of the most common questions I used to get asked as well was, and I know the answers, but I'll get you to answer them for people who might have the similar questions. But can somebody have a mentor without getting a loan?
Not through us, no. Obviously, there are different national mentoring schemes through local councils and different things like that. But through the Startup Loan Scheme, the mentors are solely for loan applicants. Yeah.
And do you get people therefore applying for to access? Because what I've found a lot of the time is that people wanted the mentor more than they wanted the money or needed the money. So they'd be applying for like the minimum they possibly could, so they could access the scheme. Does that still happen at all?
Not as often. I remember when I first started Transmit 3 years ago, we did get a few £500 applications.
Yeah.
It was the support that we're more interested in, which is absolutely fine. But no, it's a bit fewer and far between now. But people do say to me that they've selected the startup loan scheme for their finance, specifically for the mentoring support that they'll have them.
Yeah, which is key. You know, we heard Monday. I had the pleasure of chatting to Rowena Bird, one of the founders of Lush. You know, and she was saying it's so important to have somebody to talk to. And you'll know as well as me that I don't know what the percentages are, but the number of people starting a business where they are the sole founder, where there aren't any co-founders. You know, who do you speak to? You know, turn and speak to your other half at night and find that they're half asleep while you're telling them, you know, about your business trials and tribulations.
It can be so isolating, can't it?
It can.
We've set up a Facebook group though to try and counteract that, because not everybody wanted the one-to-one mentoring, that they almost wanted peer-to-peer support. So what we've got is a group on Facebook, a private group for loan recipients, where they can talk to each other and really help each other. And we found that to be really quite useful.
Almost like an alumni then, people who've gone through the scheme. I like that. That's really good.
It's been really good, and they've supported them like each other through COVID as well. I have sometimes have a look down and see, you know, people have asked, you know, what support is out there for their repayments and things like that on the loan scheme. And it's been quite nice to see everybody supporting each other and offering up advice. Yeah.
And a couple of questions that come through, and I think you might have covered this during the presentation, but maybe to reiterate it as well, because I didn't know you could do this. Maybe that's changed in the last 18 months, but can the loan be done in different tranches, for example? So if I need 10K for the first 6 months and then 15K, could I then split it so I only pay interest for 10K for the first 6 months and then only take out the 25 after 6 months, the full 25 after 6 months?
So you can split the loans. The actual split value, you have to have the higher value first, not second. So you couldn't go 10 then 15, but you could do 15 then 10. So there are different rules that we have around the splits of a tranche loan. With a tranche loan, though, a downside is that you can't have a capital repayment holiday on your first tranche, because what that would suggest is that there are affordability issues. Therefore, tranche B might be too much of a burden. So that is something to bear in mind. So you can split them, but you wouldn't be able to access any capital repayment holiday on that.
And is that the same as a top-up loan, just under another?
It's a bit different. Well, it is and it isn't. So a second loan is, we would need you to already be trading. We would need to have a look at, you know, match up your business bank statements to actual trading figures and things like that. Whereas a tranche loan, we would assess that based on that pre-start application. We would set it as a condition, perhaps. So the second tranche could be based on a particular trading size, like revenue that you've done, or it could be a milestone. If you were a cafe, for example, and you need to refurbish, then you need the stock. We also have contingency loans, which is just a maximum of 5K that's there to draw down after 90 days if you just need that cash flow support. I went on a tangent and I forgot the question. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It was with regards to top-up loans versus tranches, because I used to get, I remember, a fair amount of inquiries about a top-up loan, but the actual number of people who actually went forward and applied for a top-up loan were actually really small in the end. And whether they found out they didn't actually need that money once they started trading. You normally get those questions right at the start of the application, and once they got going and then revenue was coming in and they had the capability to pay back, to service the loan, you know, whilst having enough cash flow to pay their personal and business outgoings, then it was very small. It was more those businesses that had then expanded and they were inquiring about other routes to get further funding. Kind of the scale-up stuff you and I were talking about offline before, I suppose.
Yeah. So yeah, there is a difference between the second loan is very much to help that business grow, and we would look to see how the business has been doing and assess it on that. So it is a full application process for that top-up second loan, whereas the tranche, it's all assessed up front, which is a big difference. So if you access tranche B, your second tranche, before 6 months after you draw down the first, we don't run a second credit check or anything like that. If your core details are the same, we wouldn't need to assess affordability again. As long as you've, you know, kept up your half of the bargain and you've done what you said you were going to do, within about 20% limitation. If it's kind of revenue based, we can look at those differences. Then it's fine to do without any real massive application process, which is a big pull for people, because they think, once you've done the first one, by the time the second tranche time comes, you might just need, I just need that finance to come down. So it's a much quicker process, which is the difference between the second loan.
It is. I remember it is a lot quicker process. And for you, I know you've been inundated, and I didn't realize until you showed me the stats that you were the biggest delivery partner.
Yes.
Because Virgin. Yeah, because what kind of numbers would you expect to see normally of people getting loans? So I remember Virgin, it was always about 50 people a month, and by the end of the year, I think it's about 700 people a year. But multiply that over nearly 10 years, I suppose, and it's a fair number of people. But I can imagine you'd be doing multiples of that.
Yeah, I mean, on a monthly basis, we get a couple of hundred loans drawn down. So our approval and drawdown rate is quite close together now, which is great. So people that are getting approved for loans, because we've introduced the email, like an e-signatory, so things aren't getting lost in the post and things like that. I know.
That makes your life a lot easier.
Oh no, because when you approved an applicant and they're like, right, when do I get my money? It's like, well, it's probably going to be 2 weeks because we need the royal bill to come and then you send it back. But now it's all on email and it's fantastic. Yeah. That's the last couple of months, I think that came into play.
Okay, so anything like that expedites the process, because it's like the entrepreneur applies for the loan and they just want the money tomorrow.
Time sensitive, aren't there? If you've seen a premises that you really want and you're right, I need my deposit, come on.
Well, exactly. You don't want somebody else to gazump you on the property, or you're trying to deal with lead times to buy stock in China, for example, and get that shipped over, and you're trying to make the timings right. So again, questions I probably know the answer to, but I will frame them to you. Do you need to be a limited company? Do you need a limited company to be set up before you start the application, before you apply?
No, you can apply before you've started trading. So it's always handy to know what legal status you want your business to be set up in, just as part of your planning process. But no, we would not need you to be incorporated or to have started in any way.
Okay. And Naki asks, I've got a jewelry brand that needs to raise capital investors to help us launch a new high-end collection. We've been trading for a few years, but need to get some investment now to build profitability and grow. Is tomorrow's session more suited? So I will kind of get you to answer, but frame that by saying you would need to know exactly how many years that you've been trading.
Exactly, yeah, because we can only look up to 2 years. So the fact that you're already trading is brilliant, but anything over 2 years, unfortunately, it wouldn't be the scheme for you, and perhaps other alternative routes would be better for that particular applicant. I think he's gone. Just to raise a point with the previous question, though, that was around, do you need to be a limited company? A point that just cropped up to me there is, if you were applying with multiple business partners and you were a limited company, for example, or not, we would either need to see a partnership agreement if you weren't a limited company. If you were a limited company, we would need to see those shareholdings. So we would need to know that the applicants within, the people who were applying held at least 50% of their overall shareholdings of the business. Hi, Alex, you're back.
It kicked me out. I couldn't believe it. It goes, you've been disconnected. Well done. Well,
while you'd gone, I was like, oh, well, there was a point on the previous question around being a limited company that I thought I would raise, which was around shareholdings. So if you were a limited company and you had multiple business partners, the applicants would need to hold at least 50% of the overall ownership. And that would be the same as if it was not a limited company. We would need that partnership agreement to see the ownership split.
Okay, excellent. And yeah, I would probably say, that previous question, there are other options. Like I say, tomorrow we're covering angel investors. We are covering venture capital. Today's earlier session, which was from our friend John Auckland on crowdfunding and equity crowdfunding, specifically the likes of Cedars and Crowdcube. He, unfortunately, which I knew was going to happen at some point during this 2 weeks, has woken up with a cough and a temperature and has gone to get himself a COVID test. And we've provisionally penciled in the crowdfunding session for, as he looks at his diary, next Tuesday, the 24th at 4 p.m. So we're trying to cover every option.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is, and I've hosted John a few times before. We've done events overseas together as well. He really knows his stuff when it comes to crowdfunding, and again, has got some great success stories of people who have raised via the crowd. You know, it's a great marketing exercise at the same time, crowdfunding. So it's just other options for all of you to look at when it comes to starting your business, raising some money. And maybe a good question, John, where we've only got a few minutes left, but what can a startup loan be used for? Because I always remember that was a common question, and interested to know what has changed. People will go, you know, can I use the money to buy stock? Can I use it for cash flow? Can I use it to pay for wages? Can I use it for a deposit on a shop? So maybe you can just give me a kind of brief overview on if things have changed in that space as well.
They haven't really changed. No, it's a very versatile loan. So you can use it for equipment, you can use it for a deposit, you can use it for working capital, you can use it to pay those wages, things like that. As long as it's justified. So, you know, if you are applying for a loan for working capital, but we can see with your sales projections that it perhaps wasn't needed at that level, we would question you about the value of which you were looking at for that. But it can be used for that, absolutely. The point of it is through, you know, to help you get started. So we wouldn't perhaps want to be funding things throughout the entire first year, because we would want to see that the business would be able to stand on its own 2 feet and that it was a viable proposition. But you can use it for those things. Shorter list would be what you can't use it for, and that would be to pay off existing debt.
Yeah.
Pay for something you've already bought on your credit card, for example, and for anything that's mandatory training. So if, you know, we couldn't train you up to be a beautician if you wanted to be a beautician.
Yeah, that was a common one. People sending in bank statements, credit card statements, but putting in their financial projections that they needed to buy this, but they'd actually bought it yesterday. Exactly. And even if it was yesterday, you can't include it. Is that right?
We can't include it, nothing in hindsight. So yeah, it has to be something that you've not yet purchased.
Okay.
We can accept sort of pro forma invoices, so quite often we'll have quotes. So you know, if you've put something aside out of supplies but you've not paid for it yet, that's fine.
Great. Question from Tracy, director at Wildcroft Dairy, who says, a follow-on question from Naki. If we wanted to start a new arm of the company, this is a good question, could we apply for a startup loan? Our limited company has been in existence for more than 2 years.
Okay, now this is a grey area. We look at this case by case. Basically, what we need to see is a fundamental difference in this new arm of trading. So you've got a new customer base, a new target audience, a new revenue stream. If it's too similar to what you already do, we would view it as expansion. But it is always worth asking because it is case by case. So if you're unsure, feel free to get in touch with me, go through what it is you've got on your mind, and then I'll be able to give you a little bit more of help on that.
Yeah, and I can remember this as well. And quite often, I don't know if you get this, that your loan panel will actually fight for that case when it goes to startup loans for like final approval. And I can remember one case because it stayed in my mind, because this business literally started, it was a dog walking business, and they started out by literally walking 6 dogs. And they turned it into a £6 million business. And they literally had fleets of cars, and it was down in Cobham in Surrey. So you could imagine near like Chelsea football grounds, training ground. You can imagine that. And it was brilliant because it was like these vans would go and pick up the dog, and it would be like the dogs would be looking out through the glass roof at the rolling Surrey countryside to be taken to the day for his base, where he'd be walked a couple of times and fed, and you just thought, God, the life of these dogs must have been insane. But they were basically looking to expand into a range of dog food, which you think, you know, why wouldn't you? And they wanted to simply do it again by you know, leveraging relatively cheap money, by getting a startup loan, getting the mentoring, and we were fully behind it, but in the end, it was a no-go, and they couldn't do it. So it is, like you say, case by case basis, I think is the key phrase, as you say, because it is a grey area. It really is.
It is absolutely. But we would always, what I tend to do is, if it is something that's a very, very grey area, like that one, for example, is perhaps get in touch with the startup loans, the credit team over there up front, so that we have that answer. We've got that audit trail almost of, well, you said it was okay before we put the work in.
Yeah. So maybe last questions, if you want to pop them in, last question or two. So Jill, is the scheme any more sympathetic given the pandemic? Good question from James. A lot of people have personal loans, credit cards, they've lost jobs, maxed out on credit. Is that factored in, or is the application eligibility exactly the same as it was pre-pandemic?
The credit check is the same. Nothing has changed with that. But what we do look at now is affordability. So we might look at things, your backup plan might be a little bit different. We always ask for a backup plan in an application, so that if the business didn't work out as you planned, how would you repay the loan? Because at the end of the day, it is a personal loan for business use. So if business doesn't work out, that still needs to be repaid by you. So we do try and look at things very sympathetically and take things again by case basis. But ultimately, what we don't want to do is put you in any unnecessary financial burden. But we would look at that business viability, because it could be that actually that business is a goer. For example, takeaways are crazy at the moment.
Yeah.
There's, takeaways in burger vans, because those are the things that can still trade. If, however, you were looking at something that perhaps can't trade through the pandemic, we might have to hold it off until we've got more clear guidelines from the government on a long-term basis. But rule of thumb is, if we would have approved it before the pandemic, we'll approve it now, as far as we can reasonably do. Okay.
And again, I'll pass this on to you. Emily from Enable and Thrive says, sorry if I've already asked, but is the criteria as a new business less than 2 years trading, or 2 years from when the company registered at Companies House?
It's 2 years trading. So it could be, if you started off as a sole trader and then incorporated the company, we would take it from that sole trader date. So it's got to be that 2 years as a whole from when you first started in the business.
Nana from Life Essential says, I've missed a lot of this due to me having work calls scheduled. Am I able to watch this back from the start? We will let you know. We have asked the platform here, Air Meets, and we're waiting for a reply by tomorrow, apparently 24 hours, as to how quickly we can actually show you the replays, because we'd like to show you them literally as soon as they finished here, because we understand people are working from home, they've got meetings scheduled, etc. But a lot of this is super valuable, and it's far easier getting somebody like Jill here that I can speak to and get your questions answered, rather than you having to scroll through a website or watch some YouTube videos. This interactive format, I think, works really, really well. So we will get back to you is the answer. Check back with us, and we will let you know on a daily basis as to when we can show you those. But in the meantime, for that question, again, Jill, maybe you can just reiterate how people can have a conversation with you, have a conversation with your colleagues at Transmit, and they can answer those kind of questions that have come up by Nana there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if anybody wants to get in touch with us, who's got a question that perhaps hasn't been asked or doesn't want to ask it on an open forum, you can get in touch with us on the website, which is transmitstartups.co.uk. We do have an email function and an online chat function for instant messaging. The office telephone number is down because nobody is in the office, but you can, the business advisors such as myself, we all have mobile phones, so you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Jill Stewart-Nicholson. Find me on LinkedIn, add me, and I'll certainly get back to you. Swap my phone number there if you want to have a chat. That's fine.
Okay, I've literally got a message now. They were telling us they're going to tell us tomorrow with regards to the replays. So they're literally sending all the sessions over to us now that we can post them up. So I believe we're going to put them on the Festival of Enterprise YouTube channel, where you'll be able to see literally, day 1, day 2, day 3, every single session on there. So if you haven't already, go over to YouTube and check out the Festival of Enterprise YouTube channel. We'll let you know if we can get them on here as well, because we'd love to keep playing them throughout each day. Would make sense to me to do that. Last couple of questions, because I know we've run over, but we had a little bit of a longer intro. Jill, Have you got time for a last question or two?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. What are some of the most common types of businesses that you would get applications for?
Currently, it is takeaway shops and food vans has been the ones. We've had a lot of little cottage industry businesses as well through the first lockdown, where people have perhaps needed a lower value loan just to set up, they've had time to think about a hobby kind of business that they've planned now to start. Those are the two key ones that I get. Also, there's a lot of shops, the smaller convenience shops. A lot of those have been bought and refurbished because a lot of people are now choosing to shop smaller as opposed to going to larger supermarkets and things.
Interesting.
Couriers as well.
Yes. Yeah. That makes sense as well. Yeah. And give me, putting you on the spot now, give me an example of one of the most unusual businesses that you've approved or heard of, shall we say, that people have applied for. Like, can you beat my dog food one? That's a pretty good one, you must admit.
That is a really, really good one. Do you have put me on the spot?
I used to get, I remember when I started, and this was bizarre, I think my first 3 applications, one was somebody wanting to repair mobile phone screens, and the other 2 were reptile shops. And I was like, what am I, like the reptile guy or something? Why are you giving me all these applications for reptile shops? And again, I couldn't imagine that would be very popular at the moment. Probably get a mail order lizard instead, maybe.
Had a reptile shop just before the first lockdown.
There you go.
I think they were able to trade online. They diversified quite quickly. But we've had a few people like that whereby they've perhaps wanted to get premises and then thought, actually, I'm going to do an online shop instead. So we've had a lot of diversification that way. Strange ones though. I think it was a barbecue set. She was making all of the barbecue utensils out of reclaimed wood, which was fantastic. But she was doing it in the middle of winter, and I just thought that was odd.
Oh, yeah. Demand. Maybe she was forecasting so far into the future.
Getting the buzz going in January, I think. To be fair, through lockdown, I bet she's done really well.
Well, yeah, exactly. You can't get hold of a barbecue or a swimming pool for the garden, jacuzzis, all of that stuff. Yeah. Brilliant. Any last words from you, Jill? I think I've just posted up the email address as well, transmitstartups.co.uk.
No, just to say, if anybody, again, to reiterate, if you have got any questions, just let me know. If I've not covered anything or you would rather have sort of a one-on-one chat, get in touch. But I think the key is to just plan your business, know what you need, and just ask us for help. Because through these times, it is nice to know that you've got somebody to talk to, where it's no obligation. If you ask me a question, you don't put an application in, I won't hold it against you. I'd rather you ask the question.
Yeah, and just to maybe reiterate again, it is a personal loan used for business purposes, and you can apply from £500 up to £25,000, or is the 500 changed?
No, yeah, still 500 to £25,000, and that's per founder, up to a maximum of 4 founding members.
Okay.
And it's all at 6% interest rate.
Yep, which is brilliant. And look, as I've said to you, I've got experience of helping hundreds of these businesses that have come through the startup loan scheme. It is a fantastic scheme. That the mentoring add-on that comes with it is invaluable. So I would point you in the direction of Jill and her colleagues at Transmit, who deal with more than anybody else in the UK. So why not go to them as the market leaders in this space? So thank you once again, Jill. I will drop you a connection on LinkedIn as well to stay in touch. And anybody else, I've dropped my LinkedIn here as well. Great to keep in touch with everybody who comes to today. I will just let you know schedule for tomorrow. Again, after this, you can drop into the lounge and network with fellow attendees. Whilst I bring up the schedule, Jill, maybe one last question. Tony says, can you delay repayments until business starts trading, or is it from day one you receive the money from the loan?
It's pretty much from day one. So if you were to receive a loan today, for example, I would expect your first repayment to be at the beginning of January. We can do capital repayment holidays, but we don't do payment freezes. We did through the first lockdown, but now through the secondary lockdowns, it's very much case-by-case basis. But as a rule, capital repayment holidays we can look at much easier than payment freezes.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And yeah, just to reiterate, tomorrow, everybody, I'm going to be live at 10 a.m. here for, we'll be open from 9:30 for networking again, but from 10 a.m. It's going to be my pleasure to host Stepan Galiev, who, as I said, is best known for being director for the investments made by all of the dragons on Dragon's Den. So I'm sure everybody's probably got a question for Stepan, because it's going to be super interesting to find out, I think, the types of businesses, because quite often, I think it's something like 50% of the businesses that you see on screen that actually get investment from the dragons, once they do their due diligence and find out a little bit more about the business behind the scenes, don't actually get investment. And also be interesting to find out how some of those businesses have gone on and what they've gone on to achieve as well. I've then got, we're talking venture capital then at 12. I've got one of the directors, Stuart from Draper Esprit, who are one of the leading venture capital firms in the UK. And then at 2 p.m, we've got a live dragon himself. We've got a friend of mine, Piers Linney, who I've had the pleasure of hosting a number of times now at real live events with real humans, and also online at these events as well. So come and join us at 2 o'clock for that as well. So 3 great sessions tomorrow. Hope to see you sharp at 9:30 tomorrow. Jill, thank you once again. Enjoy the rest of your week.
You as well.
Take care now.